We are here, Mr. Bautista. We're gonna go ahead and do the intro. We'll be right back. Good morning, everyone. Here we are live here on No Vision Internet Radio. And before we start anything, I think it would be appropriate to do a tribute to what happened in 9/11. And so we're going to do we'll put a little bit of bagpipes, just like a 2-minute audio clip, and I think it's appropriate. What do you think, Mr. Bautista? Should we do it?
Very appropriate. Let's get it going. Let's roll with it.
All right, here we go. Well, Mr. Bautista, as a tribute to the people in 9/11, over 3,000 people died in New York, Washington, and Pennsylvania. So what were you doing that day, Mr. Bautista? Do you remember that day?
I can remember very distinctly that I was teaching at Urban High School. I was in my classroom. It was during my first period, which was my conference period, and I was watching it in disbelief. I could not, believe what I was seeing. At the time, I could see. I had vision, so I saw it when it hit the first one, and then of course people were filming it, showing it on and it was just something that you could not imagine that would ever happen in our country, but it did.
How about that for you? Like you being a teacher, Mr. Bautista, and it's just right now. Did you did your students understand what was going on? I mean, did they? I mean, how old were they? Number one.
Well, most of the kids didn't know what was going on, and to them, it was like a movie. They were seeing it and they couldn't believe it. I mean, we couldn't believe it. We're adults, and to see those towers go down, because I saw them, both of them go down, and it was just like, wow. I mean, it's like a demolition job,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
And the thing when I saw it when I was at the post office, I was in the cafeteria and I heard on the radio it's 93.1 and that guy Mike, I think that's his name. He's like something's going on in New York, serious. So I went to the TV and look. This is when I mean I had vision, and I see like maybe like a minute. I see an airplane hit, and I'm like, what? Like you said, like a movie, right? I'm like, what? And there was a bunch of managers from the post office getting their coffee. I go, hey, guys, check this out. Come over here. Look at the TV. Look what's going on. As they're walking towards the TV, I'm talking to them. I turn around, look at the TV again, and I see it. I go, look, they're replaying it. The airplane hit the building. But what it
Yeah,
wasn't about to, it was the second building, the second airplane.
yeah, it was the second airplane.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because when I looked at the screen, it was on the other side of the fire. I'm like, I was confused. I'm like, is that a different angle? But I didn't realize it was two
it
airplanes.
was
And when I
two.
heard about
Yeah,
Washington and then for those who know here in El Paso, uh, Boeing, the post office is on Boeing and Hawkins. So I lived on Hawkins next to the golf cart, the apartments. So I'm like, you know what, Charlie, I'm going to go home. So I started walking home, and I turned onto Montana, walking, and next to the post office is a ICE detention center. And Mr. Bautista, all the ICE agents, well, not all of them, I guess most of them, were in the streets. On top of the buildings was automatic weapons.
yeah. It
I'm
was.
like, you know
Well,
what? I turned around, went back to the post office. And it's just sad, man. People died.
it was an alarming situation for the entire country, and then of course they went to show where President Bush was reading a book to
Oh yeah, the student.
little kids in a kindergarten class, and they even show where I guess the CIA agent went over to tell him that it was a serious problem, whatever. And
I mean, for me, I think Bush really handled it good.
quite well.
I
Yeah,
don't care if Democrat or Republican. A man, a president, a true
yeah.
president. I think he handled it with integrity and with with
Respect.
sternness.
You ask yourself, would this president have done that? Would he have the ability to do that? To to react the same way that Bush did, and calmness, and then talk to the country,
I don't know.
and to the,
I think honestly, I think if Trump wasn't around, and then I do, and I don't want to put Trump in this story because now he's not
yeah.
worse in my opinion. But I think if Trump was in power, he would have started World War III. In my opinion, I
Yeah.
think so.
Well,
But anyway,
that's what a lot of people are asking, because the pandemic, he hasn't been able to handle the nothing that has been serious. He has been able to handle, and it's, like you said, we don't want to discuss. Put him into the picture, but
no,
we have to find a comparison of what the other presidents would do, and he's one of them. I mean,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
gonna have to
you're right.
compare him.
But the thing is, so we're gonna we just thought me and Mr. Bautista thought it'd be appropriate to show some respect to the victims, and that's why we play that the music. That's so that the bagpipe is so connected to respect and plain honor
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
past. So you're listening to No Vision Internet Radio. We are broadcasting both on Facebook Live and YouTube. And also, we're streaming our audio live on www.novisioninternetradio.com. Last week, Mr. Bautista, I just haven't told you this, but last week we had 700 views or 700 hits to our show last week. That's good, man.
Wow,
We did real
that's
good.
awesome.
Yeah.
And
And
it's really great because it shows that people are interested in finding out news, not necessarily just national, but they want to know a little bit about the local news and stuff. And we've been providing both, and hope to be able to do a better job
yeah,
as we
and
go.
you're right. Thank you for the support, everyone out there who's watching and hearing us. We really do appreciate it because me and Mr. Bautista do out of really love what we're doing. I mean, it just costs me money, but you know what? I love it. I do love it. And by the way, I found out this morning. I called Mr. Bautista early this morning. We have found out, folks. So if you're at home and you're cleaning the house and you happen to have missed the last show, well, check it out. Just tell Alexa to play No Vision Internet Radio Podcast, and it'll play it. So we're now on Alexa devices, or whatever you want to call it. I have mine called Amazon because Alexa's too. Every time it comes on TV, it'll pop up. But talking about the pandemic, Mr. Bautista, right now we're at, I believe, I haven't since yesterday, so I haven't seen this morning. I do apologize getting ready for the show. But I know yesterday we're at 471. Unfortunately, people have passed from the virus. Over 21,000 have been tested positive. 18,000 have recovered, which is good. And so let me see something real fast, Mr. But go ahead and talk about the pandemic real fast, sir.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you, George, that the it just came out yesterday. They were talking about the of course 9/11, the number of people that died, over 3,000 people that died, and they're saying that with this pandemic now, we are averaging twice that much per week. That's just amazing to even think about that. So twice per month, or per week, of what the people in the 9/11 went through. So it's amazing. We've got to decide what we want to do as a nation, not just as a state. Because the state of Texas, we're still not doing the things that we should be doing, and there's other states like Arizona and Colorado, and those states that the people still think that it's a hoax, that it's not real, that it was invented. I saw them just yesterday. Two guys were interviewed, and they were very adamant about the fact that it's a hoax, that we don't need to protect ourselves. And not only that, they were saying, if I die, I die. That's just the way it is.
Well, I think I added Miss Garcia by accident. Miss Garcia, are you on the stream? I think I added her by accident. Let me see.
Okay.
Go ahead and talk, Ms. Garcia.
Anyway, so it's amazing too that here in El Paso we still have people that know that it's a deadly virus, and that we're not going to have a vaccine in time. The president keeps saying that we're going to have it on his birthday, which is November the 3rd, because that's when he's going to get reelected as president. But no dies, and the thing is, we're not going to have that vaccine either. Vaccines take a while to be.
Fauci was saying that we should have one in several months, but it won't be till like next year.
Yes.
End of next year before we actually get back to normal. But let me play a clip, Mr. Butts. I'm glad you mentioned about the podcast or the pandemic. I want to play a clip, Dr. Fauci was talking about specifically that about what the president is saying and I guess him, his input. I mean, we have to listen to him. He is an infection specialist, so he would, his word would be good, right? You would think. So maybe go ahead. Yeah, he's an expert. I mean, no denying that, no matter what we say,
Yeah.
So
you don't want the president operating on you. So I go with the doctor.
Here we go. We'll put the audio.
I'm Andrea Mitchell in Washington, where tonight the conflict between President Trump and the nation's top infectious disease expert is out in the open. Dr. Anthony Fauci disagreeing with what the president said in Michigan last night.
We're rounding the turn. You see what's happening. You see the numbers are plunging.
But Dr. Fauci the same day saying it was time to hunker down.
How do you square those two messages?
Well, I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with that, because if you look at the thing that you just mentioned, the statistics, Andrea, they're disturbing.
Those numbers, nearly 40,000 cases a day in the U.S. and 1,000 deaths.
When people will be spending more time indoors, and that's not good for a respiratory-borne virus, you don't want to start off already with a baseline that's so high.
Another disagreement, those large campaign rallies, even outdoors, without social distancing or masks.
Just because you're outdoors does not mean that you're protected, particularly if you're in a crowd and you're not wearing masks.
And as for what the president told Bob Woodward about the pandemic,
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
Those are his words in his own voice.
Certainly there were disagreements. As you know, there were times when I was out there telling the American public how difficult this is, how we're having a really serious problem. And the president was saying it's something that's going to disappear, which obviously is not the case. When you downplay something, that is really a threat, that's not a good thing.
Asked about pressure for him to say school children do not need masks.
That's a fool's errand. No one is ever going to pressure me or muzzle me to say anything publicly.
Dr. Fauci says as we enter the fall and winter, we have to do everything we can to prevent further surges and not let politics get in the way.
Well, Mr. Bautista, you heard it straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
You got to really protect ourselves going. Because I think what happens now, what's happening, Mr. Bautista, a lot of people are becoming complacent about, you know what, man, ya pasó, or I don't have to wear a mask anymore or wash my hands. You're still going to do it.
But the problem is, George, is that if you look at it, the person who should be setting the example is going opposite from what the scientists and the experts are saying, you know, and people, you think that they would say, well, gosh, you know, I mean, people are dying, so it must be true. They're still, you know, following him around like puppies, you know, and it's too bad because more, you know, he's responsible for, you know, all the people that have died since he was informed that the virus was deadly. But he doesn't care because, you know, even his niece said he doesn't care about anything. You know, it doesn't bother him at all. And so this is why we as the citizens of this country, we need to put a stop to that. And we just need to vote, get him out of there, and give somebody the opportunity to correct it as much as they can. Because I tell you what, if Biden gets elected, it's not going to get, you know, taken care of immediately. He's got a lot of work to do just to try to correct that problem, you know.
Well, look what they're doing here in El Paso. Is about to talk about Yapaque, because here in El Paso for the Labor Day weekend, the city put out 50 I think it was 50 violations, 10 citations. It's 6 months into the pandemic, and the city's barely really enforcing it. I mean, come on.
How many citations have the city given out since? Do you know, George? Do you remember?
A handful. I'm not going to lie to you. It's been literally a handful, Mr. Bose. It hasn't been that much. It hasn't really been that much.
But you see, the thing that they're doing wrong, in my opinion, is that they're saying that they want to penalize the businesses, and you can give them a $400 penalty, and if they're making $6,000 a night or a day, the penalty is not it's not going to affect them in any way. What they need to do is give that $400 penalty to the individual. I bet you don't go to the pizza.
Oh, there's a bar next to where Lou goes to work.
Uh-huh.
It's right there by the police department on Pebble Hills and Chirino. Yeah. And she was, every time that she passes, especially on the weekend, because she works Saturdays, nights, and Sunday nights.
Yeah.
That place is packed. Yeah. And I'm like, what the heck? The pandemic and check this out, Mr. Bautista. Talking about the pandemic, folks. I don't know about Utah plays Texas today. I think the point spread is 42 points. Ouch. Anyways, Texas.
Did they play last week?
No, they're gonna play. Well, they played last week. They played Stephen F. Austin University, I think it is. They beat them 24. I think it was 24-14. This week they played Texas, UT Texas, the Longhorns.
No, come on! They're not really playing them, are they?
No, they're not playing. They're playing for the money. But Texas, Texas is only going to test. I could be wrong now, but I know this the basic what I'm saying is true. They're only going to test their ticket holders for the for the virus.
Yeah.
But they're not going to test. Like, let's say me and you were to go down to Dallas to Austin to watch the game. They're not testing those people. So, I mean, it's like when the Texans and the Chargers or the Chiefs played Thursday. There were 17,000 people there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just hope we don't. I'm just scared that we're being complacent and this is going to come back and bite us in the butt. I hope not.
Well,
I really hope not, but
the doctors have already indicated that it is. It's going. They're already telling you that they're anticipating at least 400,000 deaths by Christmas. So I mean, they're already telling you that it's going to happen, and yet people are still out there having parties and
every weekend, Mr. Bose, here in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Every weekend they have parties. I'm like, And I'm not talking about like little. No, they have the whole parking lot or the whole block with cars and music. And,
Yeah.
I don't know, folks. I mean, just we think the pandemic is bad enough as it is. I want to talk about this too, Mr. Bautista. We talked about it, me and you, off the air. The fires. I didn't realize how bad it was.
Oh gosh, George.
In California and Oregon, so bad. I think it was 500,000 people have been evacuated from Oregon. It was just 10% of their population. I'm like, think about it, Mr. Bautista. If there's a pandemic, then you have a fire that you need to leave your home, and you get stuck. And I'm just, man, I feel so. As a matter of fact, I want to play an audio I saw last night about them people actually taking measures into their own hand, where they're actually want to purchase like old fire trucks. They were actually, and I'm like, that's something I've never thought about. But I want to go ahead and play this audio and I'll talk about those fires. Hold on, Mr. Bautista.
As the historic West Coast fires rage on, some civilians are starting to wage war with their own hands by purchasing their own fire trucks. Bob Holbert is putting his fire truck up for sale.
Do you teach that person how to operate the fire truck?
Yeah, if they bought this truck, we'd show them how to run it and how to run the pumps.
It may look complicated, but his son Hobie showed me it was pretty easy.
Today I'm going to actually teach you how to use one of the hoses. You want to hold it, and then that's going to open and close it.
But without proper training, is it a good idea to own one? We found all these ads posted on Craigslist for used fire trucks. The prices range from $10,000 to $20,000. CAL FIRE Deputy Chief Nick Schuler says owning a used fire truck could do more harm than good.
What we're going to see is people that are buying these engines with the best intentions in mind that are going to end up either losing their lives or killing firefighters who are responding to their homes to save them when they try to get out too late.
In Oregon, an extraordinary 10% of the state's population has been evacuated. That's more than 500,000 people. In Los Angeles, America's second largest city, is recording its worst smog in 30 years. KCBS TV meteorologist Danielle Gersh.
This is the worst air quality that we've had in 30 years. We have 2 fires burning, and we have had more than 5 days of smoke advisories here in the Southland.
Wow, we had a bad Mr. Bautitos, man.
Can you imagine? And they haven't figured out how many people have gotten killed by the fires. They know that there's some that died, but they don't know the numbers yet. And of course,
I was listening to NPR yesterday, Mr. Bautista. It was so sad that they found a 12-year-old kid with his dog.
Yeah.
Oh, Tito, man.
Some people just did not have the chance to get out because the fires, and people, don't know how fast the fires will travel, but they're it's scary. I wouldn't want to be caught in one of those situations. But you know what, George, the scary part to me is not so much that the fires and this and that. It's the lack of willingness for people to understand that the earth needs to be taken care of, and those people that don't believe in the environment, see that what's going to happen, George, is we're going to get a catastrophe, a serious catastrophe, just like we have with the pandemic. We didn't, we weren't prepared for that, and we're not going to be prepared for the catastrophe with the environment when.
You're right, Mr. Bautista, because if you think about it, like the tornadoes, I mean the hurricanes, they say that's the first time in the biggest one in 150 years. Excuse me, not only that, but there's 2 of them, two hurricanes hit in less than a week. So I mean the world, Mother Earth is saying, guys, you know what? You need to take care of me. You really do, because like the fires.
In El Paso, we're very fortunate that we have the mountain there that protects us, in a lot of ways. But we haven't had anything that serious. No. But with the way that the environment is, we are going to get something. We're going to get, we're already getting colder temperatures, and hotter temperatures.
Well, look at it,
and with that,
Mr. Bautista, did you see in California this week? It was I forgot the name of the city. It's a little town. 121. 121. I'm like, you could cook an egg outside in the sidewalk. Seriously.
Yeah.
You know that, and like you said, Mr. Bautista. I mean, let me ask you real quick before we have Mrs. Garcia. Miss Garcia, Lyda Ness Garcia. She's running for the 338th District Court. She's going to be on at 11:30. Let me ask you, Mr. Bautista, if you can remember. I mean, maybe it's not the way to do this, but how was the weather? I mean, the climate. Do you remember being that extreme back in the day when you were younger? I mean, I'm not saying you're that old, but I'm saying going back 30, 40 years.
All right, George. All right, just keep it up. You know, when I remember being a newspaper boy at the age of 10 or 11. I was out in the streets downtown. To me, that was Disneyland for me. You know, being downtown, selling newspapers and just going here and there. But I remember even when it was cold, we'd just be wearing a t-shirt. We weren't wearing a jacket or anything. It was cold. I mean, we'd go from building to building, but I mean, nothing compared to what it's getting to be this way. And in the summertime, and it would reach 102, but that was very seldom. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't as extreme like it is today. Now, we get 6, 7, 8 days.
Great. 108, 109, 110.
Yeah.
Like, wow. And just think about, and we're talking about that too, Mr. Bautista. We talked about this in the show prior to this. Kind of segue to another issue here, but your pets, when it's that hot or that cold, I mean, don't be lazy and just leave them out, or have water for them, have food, because I mean, pobrecitos, you're the only one that could provide that shelter. If you don't do that, what can you do?
And if you can't provide, you shouldn't have them. I mean, simple as that. There are people that, just like my mother used to say, there are some people that just should not have kids, and that's the same thing with pets. Yeah. There are some people that just have no business having pets because they don't know how to take care of them.
I can tell you from my experience, my work experience, that some people, folks, you wonder, like, wow, how do they become parents? And it's just so sad that. When you appreciate your mom and dad, like me and you, Mr. Bautista, like my mom and your mom, and what they gave us, what they sacrificed for us, and it's just something you miss that. When you see these little kids suffering with their parents, I'm like, wow. Like the other day, Mr. Bautista, it was 11:30 at night. Even though the kids are not going to school per se, right? 11:30 at night, and the kids in front were playing. They're in the streets, and I mean literally in the streets. Because I looked outside, and I'm like, what are they doing at 11:30 at night in the streets?
Well, that's the lack of responsibility, and people that are not good parents, that are, we weren't taught how to be good parents. We were just taught how to be good people, and from that you get the expertise on how to become a good parent, but we weren't ever allowed to be out in the streets.
Hell no. My uncle told me, and I bet you probably told your kids this too, Mr. Bautista. My uncle told me, when the lights outside come on, you come in.
Yeah.
Simple as that. The street lights come on, vámonos. Hey, just go inside.
Yeah.
The kids now, the 10:30, 11:30 at night, jugando. I'm like, no, that's not how it's supposed to be.
But then the other thing too is that once they're coming home, you think that they would, go home, go rest or whatever, or do chores or whatever. They end up, they're going back to their computers and to their cell phones and playing games, and so it's like it's a game time all day long and all night long.
When we were younger, we had Nintendo and Sega and all that good stuff, Ataris, and I remember we would say, I don't know. Go to your room. We're like, okay. We have games there anyway, so I'll go there
but remember, George, we didn't have a computer. You didn't have any electrical games or tools. I remember we used to have the medicine bottles. We used to use those as like our little cars, going around the couch and stuff like that, pretending. But we didn't have any of the technology that these kids have today. So it's a whole different environment.
Before the Nintendo came out, we had tennis balls, and we would hit it
Yeah.
inside the house like
On the
dodgeball.
wall.
Like,
Yeah.
oh man, check yeah, that was, or we found a. I remember this. We found a broom, and we took off the little top part, and we used it as a bat. Boom! I want
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you some stories. When I was when we lived in Sunland Park, New Mexico, in Mero Vista, by Anapra, we used to go, to show you how foolish we were, we used to go looking for snakes. Kill snakes, yeah. I mean, it's how dumb is it? I mean, I didn't have that good a vision to go around, but we would go killing, looking for snakes and lizards and stuff. And then even worse, we'd go jump in the river because that was our swimming pool.
Right? No, my grandma. Funny you mentioned that. My grandma would tell me that was it my grandma or my grandpa? I forgot. It's been a while, but when they were younger, they would go play in the Rio Grande, just up in or the canal. I mean, now you don't do that because the current would take you in. But I'm just saying that back in the day, like, do you remember I was seeing an article about the alligator in downtown? Do you remember that, Mr. Bautista?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I used to sell newspapers right there at the plaza, and one of my corners was there, right across from Pem Pem, and that bar that was there, and all the buses would come there, and that was where they would.
And they had the trolley from. Is it true they had the trolleys from I guess downtown El Paso to Juarez?
Yeah, I used to get on the trolley and go all the way to Juarez and go to the market and buy pinole and peanuts and come back and they let me come get in the trolley for free because I was a newspaper boy. All I had to do is carry my papers with me.
Oh, okay.
So,
I mean,
papers.
So it would go over the what's the one downtown Paso del Norte Bridge? It would actually cross it or como?
Yeah, no, they go over the bridge and then of course they turn on September. I think it was a street of September.
Yeah.
But then I'd get off and go to the right there by where the Toro de Plaza is, and then keep going further up, and then I'd go to the Mercado there, and and it was not a problem for us. We were kids. I was 12, 13 maybe. And I'd cross over and go over there and get what I needed and come back because it was cheaper, and then get back on the trolley and then cross over to the other side. And I never experienced any problems. I wouldn't do it now.
On the line, so we're gonna go ahead and go to a quick break, and we'll come back from the break, Mr. Bautista. We're gonna have Mrs. Lyda Garcia.
Awesome.
She's running for District 338's court, so we're gonna go ahead and go on take a quick break. And then we'll go back. Okay.
All right.
And we are back here at No Vision Internet Radio. We're broadcasting both on Facebook Live and YouTube. Also, the audio is on our website, which is www.novisioninternetradio.com. Just to let you know, folks, that next week we're scheduled to be on the show is Oscar Leeser, former mayor of El Paso. In October the 10th, we're going to have Congresswoman Veronica Escobar. And talking about Veronica Escobar, Ms. Escobar has endorsed our guest. Good morning, Ms. Garcia.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia.
Good morning, Ms. Garcia. This is Mr. Bautista.
Very nice to meet you.
Mr. Bautista is our co-host. So, Ms. Garcia, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put your website on our screen right now, on the bottom of the folks. So on the ticker on the bottom of the screen, Ms. Garcia's website will be on there for her campaign. So, can you just do me a favor, real quick, Ms. Bautista? Ms. Garcia, can you just give us like a quick background about yourself, ma'am, please?
Sure. So my name is Lyda Ness Garcia, and I am running for the 383rd Family Court. I have been practicing family law for 23 years. It's all that I've been doing. And I have a specialization in child welfare law, which means that I have been trained and licensed to deal with issues that are in the best interest of a child. I've spent a majority of my career representing children and parents who are in the foster care system, who are navigating the CPS system. And then the rest of my practice is devoted to representing families, parents, grandparents, and children in El Paso. I've also been very active in our community. I've been one of the founders of Women's March. I was involved with March for Our Lives. I've worked on freeing our children who were detained. And so I've been active both in and out of the courtroom. And I'm a mom of 3 amazing children.
That's cute. How old are your kids, ma'am?
My children are 16, 10, and 8.
Oh, cool. All right.
Real quick question: how are they attending school virtually or face to face?
So my 2 eldest ones are attending virtually, and my youngest one, we actually got some of him and his friends together and created a virtual education pod. So he has 5 or 6 of his friends, and we have a retired school teacher who's helping them navigate that, because going to school virtually is a full-time job for parents these days. And so balancing that and balancing a law practice and a campaign is about 3 full-time jobs for me right now.
And is your law practice being operating virtually as well, or are you actually at your office?
I am been working virtually since about March. I have been doing Zoom hearings, meeting with my clients via Zoom, and all the courts are doing hearings via Zoom unless they're considered extremely important hearings. So there are some exceptions.
So you're busy.
Yeah, you're busy. About to say. So let me ask you this, Ms. Garcia.
Yes.
Just so people, because this is what we try to do here on the show, is educate voters on the platforms of the candidates. And for me, I'm kind of new to the district court's platform when it comes to running for judge and whatnot. So can you just give like the how it works regarding if you become elected, the capacity of a judge?
Sure, absolutely. So the 383rd is one of 4 designated family courts. And so the only hearings and the only kind of cases that this court will hear are family law cases. So that would be custody, child support, adoptions, terminations, you name it, anything involving families. And so hopefully when El Paso elects me to be their next family law court judge, those are the cases I would get to hear.
What's the length of term for a judge?
4 years.
Is it 2 years? 4 years.
4.
Okay. And just, I guess I could just educate. What's the purpose of having an election for a judge? Because I would think that would be a most critical position to have, and to change judges, especially if you have a good judge. What's the concept behind that? Behind the changing of the guard, so to speak?
Well, I think it's always to make sure that your judge is serving their community and taking care of the families of El Paso. If you have someone who can take that bench and never leave until they retire or die, then I don't know if you have the best caliber often of a judge on that bench.
No, you're right. And that's just true. I think about that. By the way, folks who are watching on Facebook, if you do want to make a comment, go ahead and make a comment. I can post it. Be nice. No, okay. If you don't, I won't post it. And because I'm not trying to do censorship here, but I try to do a positive platform here. And happy to say that, Ms. Garcia, what puts you apart from? Because I didn't realize there was Democrat and Republican, on the ballot regarding the judge. So what puts you apart from the other candidate, ma'am?
Well, I think there's 2 main issues. One of them is I am a proud Democrat, and there's a reason I'm a proud Democrat. And that is I believe that the philosophies and the policies of my party are dedicated to social justice, equality, equal access to the courts. And that is something I take seriously. So philosophically, I I am a proud Democrat. In terms of my experience, I am the only candidate who has actually represented families. I have represented parents who are going through what are some of the most difficult times of your life. I think they say moving, death, and divorce are the three hardest things that you can go through in your life. And my experience is those things are true. And so I have been in the trenches with the families here in El Paso. I have answered emails at 10 o'clock at night on Saturday because a father is having an anxiety attack because he can't reach his child. So I understand what it means to these families. Aside from that, the fact that I only practice family law and an extensive array of family law, complex family law, high conflict family law, means that I am the only candidate who's prepared to hear those cases. My opponent has never practiced family law. She has been a career government employee. And I think it's important to understand, you can only understand the needs of the community by having represented them for over 20 years.
Okay, I hear you.
And did you attend high school? And you are an El Pasoan, right?
No, I am
You're
an
from El
adopted El Pasoan. So I went to law school, University of Texas School of Law, and straight out of law school, I had fallen in love with Waco tanks. I used to come out and visit Waco tanks and rock climb when I was very, very young. And I thought, you know what, I would really like to come out to El Paso. It's beautiful, the mountains, the desert, all of that really appealed to me. And Jose Rodriguez was my first employer, and he gave me a job prosecuting child abuse cases back when I was straight out of law school. And so I did that for 3 years, and I've stayed ever since. So I've lived in El Paso longer than anywhere else I've lived in my life, and I've chosen to raise my children here.
And I gotta give you credit, Ms. Garcia, that I saw a list of endorsements. I didn't really pay attention to last night. You have some Beto O'Rourke, Veronica Escobar, Freddie Cleo, which has been on our show, Park Garcia, which I know personally. I mean, you have some powerhouse endorsing you, and that's a good thing because that shows, Democrats and Republicans and whatnot, but that shows character in regards to endorsements. Because, matter of fact, when you don't have that much endorsement, kind of like, you know what's going on there. But let me ask you this question: when it comes to campaigning, like I said, you're kind of educating me and also hopefully the listeners and watchers. When it comes to guidelines for campaigning? I mean, do you have the same guidelines regarding like for donations and stuff like that, or how does that work when it comes to judge?
So yes, we do have the same, and I have signed what we call it. There's a judicial ethics statement that I'm going to run a clean campaign, an honest campaign, and a transparent campaign, and I have done so. I would have to say, my dad is my biggest donor, but other than that, it has been the community of activists that I have worked with, because I have been really humbled to have worked with some amazing advocates in this community. And I think that reflects in my endorsements because I have been in the forefront of fighting for justice in our community. And then, of course, from a good portion of the family bar. And I think when the family bar attorneys support me, it's because I know the law, and they know that I'm qualified and that I'm going to apply the law equally to everybody.
Well, Ms. Garcia, so I know becoming a judge is more stress. Kind of adds stress to, like when we had Veronica Carvajal on our show last week. I asked her, I'm going to ask you the same question. What makes you want to take on extra stress? What's that? Is there a passion to help it? What's that thing that says, okay, you know what? I want more stress. Well, I mean, what's the trigger for that?
When the current judge decided to retire, I realized that this was an opportunity for me to serve my community in a different capacity. I think it's extremely important to have judges who not only know the law, but have a great deal of empathy for the individualized and the complex needs of our community. And so it seemed to me to be the natural next step. I've spent 24 years being an advocate, and it just seems that this is an opportunity to fight for families and take care of them in a different capacity.
Yep, I hear you.
You mentioned that you work with divorcees and those types of cases. Which do you think are the most difficult or the most prevalent in, at least here in El Paso, that you have to deal with?
I would have to say that most of our cases involve child-related issues. If it's a paternity action, a child custody action, a child support action, I would have to say a good portion of my caseload I've experienced has involved children.
Mr. Bautista, hold on.
Yes.
We're here on No Vision with Internet Radio. We're talking to Ms. Lyda Ness Garcia. She's a candidate for the 338th District Court. And so to kind of piggyback what Mr. Bautista said, Ms. Garcia, just to let you know, like I said, full transparency here, I am a child support officer, so I know what you're talking about when it comes to custody and the how can I say this? People, when you see the cases and just everything that goes into the spectrum of the case, it hurts. Sometimes it's like, wow, I feel bad for the kid or the parents. And so what you work, so you gotta understand, folks, family court law is, like criminal law, but you have what I think what really sets apart the law or the criminal from the family law is emotions. People are going there hyped up. The parents are upset with each other. The kids are upset. So with you being a judge, Ms. Garcia, how do you say you can approach that? That's the stress, the emotions of the parties, and I mean, because that's something that you would need to handle too, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I have a family law colleague who once said that sometimes he thought practicing criminal law was easier because those are people who've done something bad and are on their best behavior, whereas family law clients are the good people who are just at their worst because these are some of the most stressful times of their lives. You have mortgages that are going into foreclosure. You have spouses liquidating assets. You have parents keeping a child from another parent because they feel emotional about their own personal issues. And so you have to kind of wade through that, both when I was an attorney and in my hope as a court, and provide them with access to the resources that are out there to really try and refocus back on what's best for the children. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, having done this as long as I have, I've realized that there are a lot of parents who lose sight of that sometimes. They're good people, and they just get really emotional.
No, I hear you. And like Mr. Bautista, he's been married, over 50 years, Mr. Bautista?
50 years, yeah.
50 years. You don't see that often.
July.
You don't see that very often, especially in family court. They're married 2 or 3 years or get divorced. I saw one where they were married, had a baby, and divorced in 1 year. I'm like, wow.
It's common.
Yeah, that's... So let me ask you
my
this
question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. My question here is related more to the parents. You're mentioning that you have parents that are upset with each other because one of them wants to have custody of the child and the other one, and my experience has been with people that I know that tell me, well, the woman always gets her way. And in court too, they always get their way, even though they may be, they may not be good mothers or good parents. They always seems to get their way. Is that true?
So in my experience, and you can ask a lot of the fathers that I've represented, that is not the case. And with my experience with a good deal of the judges, they follow the law. And the law says you shall not consider gender when deciding custody. I think that there's still a lot of... We live in a border community, and we're used to Mexico, which has what we call a tender years doctrine, and they presume that children belong with their mother. That is not the presumption here. And so I know a lot of people get worried about that, but I can assure you, you have a good judge on that bench. That is not going to be the consideration. The consideration is going to be who is the parent who is able to take care of the best interest of their child.
And I do want to mention
that.
Yeah, I do want to mention this, Ms. Garcia. Like I said, I'm very honest when it comes to the candidates being at our forum. And like I said, to educate the voters. One thing I've seen on Facebook is you have been positive. You have. And I'm not just saying because you're on. That's why I invited you to come on the show, because I've seen a negative, not only in your race, but in the other races, especially the judge race. Oh my Lord, those are vicious people. I want to tell you, it's worse. If she was to run for Congress, I think it'd be a lot better, or for mayor. Really, folks, it's just vicious. The dirty politics. And that's why that's why I asked you to come on, Ms. Garcia, to show you that, number one, say thank you for being a positive role model when it comes to campaigns, that to take the high road, not take the low road. And I'm not going to poke at anyone in Pacific, but there's a pair of sisters that are just, it's sad. They do their profession. I mean, it's just really sad. But Ms. Garcia, before we leave, I want to ask you, if you get elected, what would be your main priority in the court, the docket and why and whatnot?
That's an excellent question. So there's always a fine balance between getting people their day in court and having their voice heard, and I think that's important for anyone. But you also have to balance that with making sure that you're giving them the time that they need. And so when you say moving a docket, everybody likes to talk about that. But you can't sacrifice that to making sure you have given that family their hour, their 2 hours, whatever they need to be heard, so that you can hear and make the best decision for a child. So I think it's this fine balance. So if I can't say I would have one priority, but as a child advocate, as someone who has sat on the Supreme Court, who sits on the Supreme Court Child Advisory Committee for the state of Texas, that is always going to be my foremost consideration. I can recognize people can be lousy husbands and wives. They can be really bad ex-husbands and ex-wives, but they can still be great parents, great fathers and great mothers, great grandparents. And those are the things that I really want to always keep a focus on. There will be no predisposition or bias when it comes to, your immigration status, your race, your abilities or your disabilities. None of those things are going to matter when you come into my course. If I don't like you, that's not going to matter. If I don't like your attorney, that's not going to matter. The only thing at the end of the day that's going to matter is what is going to be best for this family and what is going to be fair for this family.
True. Now, right now was the pandemic. I know there's virtual hearings and whatnot. Do you foresee some time when that's going to flip over to in person, or have you heard anything about that on your end?
It goes month by month. So for the near future, I do know we have no jury trials scheduled, at least towards the end of the year. So I imagine Zoom is going to continue to be a reality for at least the end of this year. I also think that virtual hearings should continue to be a reality for the community if they choose so. I think we've discovered that this offers a way for people to get into court and have access to court without having to take a day off work. They can take a break, go into the lunchroom and appear for a hearing, and they don't lose their salary. You're not paying for an attorney to go down to the courthouse and then they don't have a hearing. So I think there's a lot of room to continue this, particularly when it comes to, coming to court is a big sacrifice. It takes a lot of time out of your day.
And how does it affect you? How is this affecting those parents who are not technology wise or literate? I'm sure you have some parents or families that have that problem. How are you dealing with those?
So personally, anecdotally, there are a couple of options, and I think the court has also set this up. You can still come into the courthouse for certain reasons, and sometimes they're setting up computers, but you can call in through the Zoom access and appear telephonically. And so that is a possibility. For me and my clients, if my clients don't have the tech capability, we usually bring them into our office, we socially distance, and I'll be there with them. But I do know that this is a great resource, particularly for, the disabled community, and including those who may have other,
issues, yeah.
Other issues, particularly those who are neurodiverse. And so I think this is a great new possibility and a great new world that we're all getting used to, the technology part of it, but I think it offers us some great resources.
I like what you said about because people don't realize when you go to court, it's not just sit there, okay, at 2 o'clock, I'm going to go and see the judges. Because they set the docket, you might see 8, 9 people. I don't know how you guys do that, but 9 or 10 people in one spot at 2 o'clock and 3. I think the latest is 3, if I'm not mistaken. But I think the virtual, I think it helps in participation. And it also helps for both, in my case, the NCP and the CP to show up to the hearing, because sometimes I don't want to get out of work, or I don't want to do this, I don't want to get on the bus. Or trust me, folks, I've heard a plume of excuses. And so before we go, Ms. Garcia, what is your last word to the voter out there that's kind of on the on the fence? What should I do? Well, let me ask you this: if you vote straight Democrat, is that how it works? You would be elected, right? You would be.
So that's an interesting change this year. After the last election cycle, there has now been a change, and you cannot vote straight tickets.
Okay.
So you actually have to go in and manually make a decision all the way down the ballot. We are lucky enough that they've expanded early voting, and it's starting on October 13th. So we actually have an extra week. We're going to have 2 weeks of early voting, and some of the voting sites are going to be open until 10 p.m. So those are great ways to help.
Do you find that? Do you find that a disadvantage, or do you find that to be a positive thing for voters?
I think it's a positive thing for voters and the democratic process, allowing people access, particularly those who work odd hours. If you can get off work and you have until 10 p.m. to go vote, and now on election day, you can actually vote at any poll site. You don't actually need to vote at your own precinct anymore. So for me, accessibility for any voter and increasing that accessibility is a good thing for the democratic process.
Yep.
Let me ask you just this question regarding the voting, though, because the tactics that the Republicans are using now is that you should not go vote or vote through the mail because the fraud and this and that, and I don't believe any of that. I'm going that way anyway, but I think it puts fear into people to believing that voting by mail is not good. How do you see that?
I think voting by mail is an amazing resource that so many other states use. I've been advising people, just because we're so concerned about the postal office, is go ahead and stick 2 stamps on there so that you're sending your mail-in ballot first class instead of bulk, so that you can make sure it gets there on time. You can always personally deliver it to the courthouse, but that kind of defeats the purpose of wanting to vote by mail anyway. I said, I think increasing access and allowing people to have their voice be heard is critical to this process.
And especially individuals with mobility impediments, that, or even people like me, Mr. Bautista, are blind. I think having mail-in ballot is a great option where we can facilitate our vote and, of course, be safe. But in this time, to really kind of kick up the percentage of voters, because as you know, Ms. Garcia, the voter turnout here in El Paso is historically low. Hopefully this year, with the mail-in ballot, the general election, I don't know. What do you think? Do you be higher?
I think it's going to be higher. I think we have a lot of people who are heartbroken about some of the policies of the current administration, heartbroken about their policies on immigration, having our children in cages, I think there's so many issues that we have a whole new young generation, and I see them out there every day getting involved in politics. I think there's going to be a wave this November, because I know Americans I think we are kind and compassionate people, and that's been lost over the last 4 years.
Amen to that.
I think we're going to see those people stepping up this November.
So I'm glad to hear you encourage people to go out and vote, because that's what we've been trying to do. And, they need to hear it from people like yourself, professionals who are up there, who know, the ropes, and who deal with people of all walks of life. And they need to know that and be reassured that they need to vote, especially the young generation. And I think you're right. I think the young generation is going to step up this year.
Yeah, I think so too. And I am streaming Mrs. Garcia's website on the bottom of our page. So, Mrs. Garcia, if someone wants to reach out to you to donate, to vote, or to volunteer, how can they do that?
You can go through my website. You can email me at Ness Garcia, 4 judge@gmail.com. I'm on Facebook as Lyda Ness Garcia. I have an amazing group of friends and activists who've been helping me get out the vote, and we can always use more. We're doing it the old-fashioned grassroots way.
How do you do a campaign like right now, like with the pandemic? You don't do in-house, do you? Or how do you
No,
do it?
so what we were doing initially is we used to just drop our literature. So now what we've been doing is we put our literature in the door. We're all masked and gloved, and we step back a good couple of feet after we ring the doorbell and talk to people from 6 or 7 feet away. And the response has been amazing. I think people are tired of being, quarantined at home. They're excited about the election. And they're excited to know that, I'm out there trying to meet them and talk to them about what their priorities are and their concerns are for a family court.
Yep. Mr. Bautista, you have to say before we go, sir.
Just want to thank her for being here on our show, and I think that you've given us some good educational information, and hope that you have success, becoming the next family court judge.
I appreciate that. Thank you for having me on your show, and thank you for having this resource in our community.
Thank you, ma'am. I think it's important because what happens a lot of times when I've been doing this for a while with my other platforms, and I just saw that there's a lot of time that candidates don't have that voice where on the quote unquote main media, they only get 20, 30 seconds, if that, and maybe edits it down to 5 seconds. And sometimes the voters, like me and Mr. Bautista, if we go on a ballot, I want to see, Miss Garcia. Oh, yeah, I remember her. She talked about this. And so this is the main purpose for right now. Of course, we're going to have different topics later on the year after the elections. But right now, I think it's very important that we just bring out the candidates to this platform to educate the voters. Now, it's up to the voters to do 2 things: vote and educate themselves. And that's why we have this platform. We've been very successful so far, thank God. Me and Mr. Bautista was talking about that last week. We had 700 hits last week, and so this is our main focus right now, Ms. Garcia. I do appreciate. Thank you, ma'am, so much for coming on board. For those who are listening and watching, this is No Vision Internet Radio. Of course, if you want to hear our past episodes, if you have an Alexa device, just tell Alexa to play No Vision Internet Radio podcast. It will play the latest episode. If not, go to your Google device or iPhone device on your podcast player. Look us up. And Ms. Garcia, God bless you, ma'am. I wish you the luck. And I hope. Oh, before I leave, I got to ask you another question. Sometimes I ask Mr. Bautista, this question. Ms. Garcia, you may lose some voters here, so be careful how you answer this. Are you a Dallas fan?
Can I plead the fifth?
Yeah, I just hope that you said, just say no. I mean,
Can I tell you honestly, I'm an underdog fan. I went to the University of Michigan for undergrad, so we've been kind of a Lions. Our family are Lions fans, and I know they lose horribly all the time. But
that's cool. Hey, isn't that the University of Michigan where Tom Brady won it, right? Yeah, that's right.
Well, I tell George that I'm a Texan. I used to be a very loyal Dallas Cowboy fan. When they did away with the head coach, when Tom Landry was removed, that was it for me. And so now I am a Texan fan.
Well, Mr. Garcia, I appreciate you being on the show, and we'll see you next week, hopefully with Oscar Leeser. If not, everyone have a great day.
you all stay safe. Thank you.